So if you think the solution to a kid not knowing how to act is to put them in a child prison camp, you're wrong. Something's wrong with you, and you're probably the one that needs to check yourself in somewhere. Reprogramming your child in a prison camp where they're not allowed to sing songs, talk about music, or use their own birth name isn't the answer, you dumb ass. Hello, everybody. How are you doing on this fine? Oh, I really don't. Friday. So today we're going to be doing something a little different. I said recently during my Steve-O video that I really don't read the comments section on BJ Investigates, and that is true. We had a video premiere last night on BJ Investigates, and it was about the troubled teen industry. And in particular, we focused on the stories, the very public stories of Paris Hilton and Danielle Bregoli, who's also known as Bad Baby. They both have come out very publicly and described horrific abuses that they endured while they were in these behavioral modification camps. So this morning I was talking to Jake and he was like, have you seen the comments on BJ Investigates from our video last night? And I was like, no, I haven't. I really don't read the comments. And he said, people are in there like spilling their hearts, telling their stories. He was like, if you can manage, I think you should read through some of the comments because people are telling their stories about what had happened to them. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. So about 5 minutes ago, I went to BJ Investigates comments and I started reading the very first comment I started reading. I was so overwhelmed with emotion that I felt like we should just do this together because I need emotional support to get through this. I know a lot of y'all who comment over there do follow me here. And, I wanted y'all to see that I am actually reading these particular comments on BJ Investigates. And I don't know if I'll be able to read all of them, but I wanted to read them, wanted to acknowledge them, and I wanted to put those stories out here because I feel like that's the least I can do. We all went through stuff as kids. I'm not trying to minimize anyone's particular struggle or anything like that, but this seems to be something that happened to a lot of people who either actually got sent to these places or got threatened to be sent to these places. And it does seem like it's affected a lot of people's lives. So without further ado, I'm just going to pull up the comments section and scroll through and try to give a little bit of exposure to some of the things that some of y'all and some of your family members have gone through at the hands of these troubled teen homes in hopes that we can amplify what happened in order to bring light to it and maybe eventually find a solution. And in my opinion, the solution has got to be shutting these places down. Comment below if you have any idea as to what the solution might be. Oh, okay. I also have my tissue. I didn't feel like going to get a box of tissues downstairs and I felt like I was going to start crying. So have a fresh roll of tissues here. Okay. So the top comment here is from someone named Hill Girl Stacy 4103. And Stacy says, my brother was sent to Laurel Hills in San Antonio as an early teen. I haven't read this comment. I read the first sentence, but I have not read this comment. He's 47 years old now and messed up. I can't say if he was mentally ill at the time, but he sure as H is now. Never tell your children something is wrong with them. It is irreversible. Justify all of their feelings, even if they don't coincide with your own, and talk it out rationally. Cliche Guevara says, I got sent to an evangelical Christian home for troubled teens in Tennessee, which we know Mercy Ministries is one of those places. It was a nightmare. So much exploitation and abuse happened there. I ended up stealing one of their cars and escaping because juvenile jail was preferable. My parents still apologized to me for allowing themselves into being talked into sending me there. And I said this in the video. If y'all haven't watched the BJ Investigates video from last night, go check it out. But I say it in that video. I say, I'm that type of person. If you're the type of person that's not going to sit around and put up with somebody else's bullcrap, and as a child, you realized you were the only one in the room with any kind of sense, and you have to take your own self preservation into your own hands and run away, that's exactly what I would have done. This is the type of kid I was. It's obviously still the type of adult that I am. I'm the same type of person. And I think these places actually try and attempt and sometimes are successful in reprogramming your brain so that you're not the type of person that you went in there being. So, as cliche has said here, they ran away. They got in a car and they stole a car. They committed grand theft auto so that they could get out of this place and go to jail because jail was better. And it just feels very familiar to the whole conservatorship thing, right? Conservatorship or jail. It's like, ranch or jail, troubled teen home or jail. And it's like this person said, I stole a car so I could go to jail. That's how bad this place was. Oh, man. So Ludwig says there is a judge here, I don't know where here is, who got arrested for sending people to a recovery clinic that he owned. And a bunch of other judges were sending them to this judge's recovery center, and he was giving them kickbacks. Not surprising. Ooh, this one's bad. Okay, so I don't know how to say this. I'm going to say Nola Legna says, my boyfriend's brother was sent to a troubled boys summer camp in Utah. And he says they isolated him and wouldn't let him sleep and gave him electroshock. When they picked him up, he was silent until they were out of the state. Ugh. Oh, man. So Shanna, who I know watches this channel as well, so she'll probably see this, she commented, thank you. I was a victim of the troubled teen industry, juvenile justice system in North Carolina in the late 90s, early 2000s. And that's about whenever Paris Hilton was in Provo Canyon. Shanna says, I was actually the first juvenile enrolled in Cabarrus County's intensive juvenile alternative outpatient drug treatment after school program. It was a nightmare. Back then, your parent acted as your probation officer liaison with the court officials over the juvenile court cases. If your issues were with your parents, the perfect prison funnel was created, and incarceration was punishment for any perceived noncompliance with the program. I was lucky enough to understand that to gain my freedom, I had to play the game. I've been on my own since age 14. I fought for everything I have, and I know exactly what kind of person and parent I am. I'm so proud of my two amazing sons. They can both come to me with anything, anytime, and I'll do my best to help them through it. There is still a training camp in Cabarrus County, Stonewall Jackson, for young males. I can't imagine what goes on there. Kids need more love, more compassion, more understanding and kindness, not prisons. Oh, man. Ahmedvad1 says, I went to the Provo Canyon School several times to speak and share my own recovery story with the girls there after I spent time at a different program where I faced all types of horrific treatment and abuse. These places are disgustingly prevalent within the industry. The girls I spoke to at Provo Canyon all seemed unusually quiet and afraid to ask questions or speak up when I was there. So Big Dad Giga Chad says, I spent 10 years in foster care, and that ranch is paradise compared to what I went through. They made me do medication trials and wouldn't stop them when I had negative side effects. I was a lab rat for pharmaceutical companies, and the state was my guardian. I found out a couple years ago they don't even medicate kids like that anymore. I was beat up and abused countless times, starved to where I'd dry heave every morning, and I had to learn to defend myself or continue being victimized. Let me get myself together. I just can't help but think about the fact that this happened to y'all when you were kids, right? And that's like the most important developmental time of your life when you're a kid. I mean, it's the time you're developing. And like, I don't want to get into my whole story and all that right now, but just suffice it to say that my childhood was not a walk in the park. As y'all know, I was raised by at least one addict, and it wasn't always rainbows and butterflies. But when I think about the horrors that some of y'all went through in these homes, these camps, the foster care system. I know the foster care system is horrible. I know it is. And what I just can't help but think about is that, like, we don't really get any tools to, like, work through this stuff, right? And they don't teach you in school. Maybe they do today, but when I was in Louisiana public school, they weren't teaching you any emotional coping mechanisms or any ways to deal with the stuff. And there really wasn't anybody to go tell anything to. There was no one who could help you. And what I'm trying to get at is that it really just blows my mind that people went through this stuff. Some of y'all went through this stuff. And now, like, you have to wake up every day and, like, go to a dumb job and, like, participate in polite society and be normal. And I put normal in quotes because, like, it's not normal. What they want us to act like every day is not normal. We're not allowed to act normally. We're supposed to act like whatever polite society and capitalism wants us to act like. But, like, it just blows my mind to think about the severity of the trauma that some of y'all had to go through. And then, like, now you have to wake up every day and go to a job and, like, act like none of that happened. And it's like, did the state give y'all tools to sort out, like, those emotions and how to get through it? No, hell no. They gave you medical trials. And it's just, I get so overwhelmed thinking about just innocent children. I'll read this one because it's a little more lighthearted. I said in the video that one of the things that in my evangelical upbringing that I wasn't allowed to do was I was not allowed to read the Harry Potter books. And the reason I wasn't allowed to read them is because it wasn't even my mom. I really think my mom was just trying to follow whatever rules, like, the pastor had in place. And the pastor, Larry Russo at the Harvest Church, used to be called Port Allen Full Gospel Fellowship, if y'all are curious. He would say that it was like witchcraft and there was, like, devils in the books and stuff. And, like, my other friends' parents and stuff that would go to churches, they would say it was the devil Bible. And they would say all kind of weird stuff. I was not allowed to read Harry Potter. The first time I read Harry Potter was I was 21 years old and I was in a young adult fiction class in college. And they said, Alexandria said, a child not being able to read Harry Potter is actually horrible. Those books, I was the same age as Harry. Me too. Me and Harry were the same age. And I related so much. I escaped. I felt better. It is so damaging to take any books away from children, and it's their coping mechanism. And I do appreciate that insight. Oh man, so Dirty Nacho says, my dad was at Provo in the late 60s, early 70s. So this place has been around for like 50 years and they have changed ownership and stuff, but the same place is still there. They say it wasn't a good experience for him or people there with him. They beat them then too. And among other things, he told me, I became close with him after my mom passed and he died a couple years ago. I hope something is finally done. My dad's parents had a ton of family in Utah and were very strict Mormons. I have a photo album of pictures from there around the time he hitchhiked back home. So Norman Smith says they live in Provo, Utah. Okay, so let's get a little perspective about Norman's opinion. I live in Provo, Utah, and I'm ashamed that Provo Canyon School is here. We were lied to when it came, and a person tends to be thought of as a reprobate if they speak out against the school. It started out as a boys' school and soon ran afoul of the ACLU for using corporal punishment. We did not know what was happening until Paris Hilton came out. Paris is more credible than Bad Baby, and she really got my attention. I don't know if I agree with that, Norman, but I respect your opinion, and your opinion, if Paris is more credible, then that's your opinion. I was pretty upset, and I was just starting to get over what happened to Britney Spears. The story re-traumatized me. I'm disappointed that the school is still operating. I'm glad you're speaking out on it. I am one Provo man who wants the Provo Canyon School closed. Let's call it what it is. Trauma-based mind control, dehumanizing the victims to reprogram them. Mary Jane Doe says they want to break you. They want to keep you from sleeping or having anything remotely comfortable in any way so you appreciate it more and are grateful for the crap they pull once they successfully break you. Even when I went to a treatment facility, which was actually classified as a level 1 prison, we weren't allowed to sleep other than 10:30 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. Weren't allowed to have caffeine, had to ask permission to go up and down the steps, ask permission to go to the bathroom. We weren't allowed to look at the men there. As far as like them walking by or passing in the hallway or when the kitchen when in the kitchen, etc. It was a big, over-controlled adult daycare, and I know what I went through was nothing compared to what these people went through at places like the ranch. But it definitely makes it easier to believe them because I know how horrible people become, especially when they profit from it. I could never imagine sending a child to a place where I wasn't there to at least see what was going on. Trust complete strangers to do right? GTFO. I don't even trust my family like that. It's so disgusting and sad. Jude says, I know people who went to a Dr. Phil camp and they were dragged by chains tied to their hands. Summer Ray Hayes says, I am a victim and survivor of House of Hope in Orlando, Florida. There's the Florida Shuffle. We were abused on a scale only a few know. My body gave out after 8 months, transported to hospital, 2 months stay of recovery, and unfortunately returned back home to a religious cult that wasn't much better. Never again. Ugh. So 3VR3R says you should look into an organization called Teen Challenge. I am severely traumatized religiously, emotionally, and psychologically from my 1 year spent there from age 17 to 18. I am now 43. Teen Challenge sounds like the Louisiana National Guard Youth Challenge program. And it's like where they put little kids in basically like a boot camp to reform their behavior. A lot of foster kids get sent there, and it's kind of like these ranches, but the extra twist is that you can study like a pre-college like GED track, or you can, I think either way you have to do a GED. I'm not an expert on this. It's just from what I remember. Y'all can look it up. But it's a pipeline into the military. It's a pipeline into the National Guard. And y'all, listen, I really respect the military. I truly do. I think we need a military and all that. But what I don't respect is tricking people who are in vulnerable positions into going into the military when it's not really their choice. And it's just like a pipeline to like start reprogramming you as a little kid so that you're ready to go into the military. In my opinion, for entertainment purposes only, you can form your own opinion, but that's what it is to me. And I am going to look into the Teen Challenge. But y'all, like, if you can't tell, it's actually very difficult for me emotionally to even read these comments because I'm just so, I don't know what the word is, like empathetic, I guess. Like, I just have such a vivid imagination, and like it's almost like I travel to that place and I'm there in the place with you as a kid, or like with children who are there now. And it's like, I don't mean to say I know how it feels, because I don't. I've never ever been in one of these places as a patient or as a victim or anything like that. I don't want to minimize it. I do not want it to come across like that. But like, it does something to me emotionally to consider and to think about and to imagine people being in that position, and then like to imagine that like no one ever like cared or felt sorry for you, and then you just kind of had to keep going. And a lot of y'all were in there because your parents did not know how to act, and how you were responding to your parents was completely reasonable, and you were considered the bad guy or the bad person, and you were punished like a criminal for acting in a completely natural and normal way. And it's just like, I will look into it, but it is very difficult for me to go into that place like in a like, I mean, if you can't tell, this whole video, I'm like holding back tears. This is a diluted version of trauma programming for mind control. So Bonnaroo said they wanted me to place my child, or they were going to take my child away from me if I couldn't handle her. A doctor told me my child will absolutely get SA'd in mind those places. Oh man, I'm going to cry at this one. Just get ready. This is so horrible. Did anyone ever ask why Danielle was acting out? How come her mother is painted as innocent when she's kicking in doors? That's not my idea of either good conflict de-escalation or good parenting. My grandson is labeled as having behavioral problems and is diagnosed as autistic. But he's really just traumatized because his mom has a new boyfriend every year, and they all face in, steal her money, and assault her. But they all physically and verbally attack the kids too. So the kids act out. Exactly. This is what I was just saying a few minutes ago. And yet I'm the one that's not allowed to see them. It's their mother that has the behavioral problems. Laura Trill said, I have 4 older brothers. In 2nd grade, my mom had 2 big men come take my oldest 2. Less than a month later, 2 more men came in to take the other 2. I was sleeping on the bottom bunk when they grabbed my brother off the top. They were in Montana and Utah for 2 years. The program. Someone said, what I keep learning from all your videos is choose jail. Listen, y'all, jail ain't fun either. Like, they don't know how to act over there either. They abuse their power over there too. But at the very extreme least, there are some actual rules in place for jails that they actually are supposed to follow. And they don't always. Actually, they probably rarely do. But at least there's something there, right? Like, at least there's something. Like, you have the right to talk to a lawyer in jail. Bottom line, at least. Okay, Court Miller, great point. Court Miller says, how is child neglect and child abuse, mental and physical, legal for these camps to enact? But if parents do not provide proper bedding, drinking water, or medical attention, they can get their children taken away from their custody. Great question. Nathan says, these jail alternative ranches are all over. I was at one for about 3 years, starting at 15 years old. I saw a lot of bad stuff. The guy who started the place is a big hero who got the Order of Canada, even though he beat up kids. Still open today. How is a place like this legal? Didn't another group of people in history also get assigned a number asking for a friend? Dr. Phil trying to act like he doesn't remember Danielle is laughable. People who didn't even watch his show remember her episode. Yep. Raffi says, I know people who went to those camps and they starved them. Okay, so I'll read this one as the last one from Cynthia. She says, in the late 80s, my parents were preparing to sign me over to a state institution because they couldn't control my behavior. The state refused to take me because, in their words, I had no criminal record, I had never drank or done drugs, and I was still a virgin. They said I would end up SA'd and or pregnant or abused by staff members because I was still, quote, pure. Ugh. This was the institution itself admitting that these things happened there. Thank God I was spared having to be signed over to the state, and my heart goes out to these young people who have had to endure such cruelty at the hands of people who are supposed to protect them. This world is full of evil vultures. And I did see a couple comments in there of people saying, basically in varying ways, that they kind of support these child prison camps. And they were saying, in these comments, I'm not going to put any up because it's not worth the airtime, but people saying it's okay because what are you supposed to do when your child is that out of control? And I would say you're supposed to deal with your damn kid because you were probably the reason they turned out that way. As we read from people's comments earlier, their brothers, their sisters, or their grandchildren have turned out the way that they turned out precisely because their parents were not good parents. And so for those of you who are saying, what is a parent supposed to do? A parent is not supposed to be a piece of shit, for one. A parent should create a loving, safe, healthy environment for their children to grow up in. That's what a parent should do. And then whenever their child's behavior gets so far out of hand that they don't know how to act in polite society, then that parent should figure it the fuck out. Because passing your kid off to a child labor camp is definitely not the way. So the sick freaks who think that this is somehow acceptable need to consider these poor parents, that maybe the parents are the reason that the kids turned out like that in the first place. Yes, of course, there's always exceptions to things. There's some kids who are just sociopaths and they need medical treatment. They also need love, support, a safe environment to make mistakes, a safe environment to learn how to act, how to be cooperative, how to be collaborative. Reprogramming your child in a prison camp where they're not allowed to sing songs, talk about music, or use their own birth name isn't the answer, you dumb ass. So if that's what you think the answer is, block me. Don't watch any more of my videos because me and you are not living in the same dimension and we are not on the same frequency, okay? I don't want nothing to do with you. Keep your disgusting, loser, sick, freak vibes away from my comment section. And this is one of the reasons I don't read comments, because y'all literally do not know how to act. And when I say y'all, I'm talking to that specific group of people. I'm already just in a heightened emotional state from just like reading all these comments. And, I already mentioned it, right? Like just putting myself in that position, even though I never was in that position. I don't know firsthand how it feels, but just imagining it is bad enough to make me have a very extreme emotional response. And the fact that someone could watch that whole video and the thing they take from it is, what is a parent supposed to do when their kid is acting out? I don't know. Figure it out. Figure it out. You brought that kid into the world. You made the choice to do that. So figure it out. As you will notice, I do not have children. I've made the very intentional choice not to. I do not have children because I am not in a position right now to be a good parent. And I'll be a way better parent than some of y'all sending y'all's kids to these prison camps, because I'll never do that. But it's kind of like the same thing as like, well, what are you supposed to do when someone's addicted to drugs? Not take away their rights and freedoms. That's going to make it worse. You don't have to be a medical professional to figure that obvious shit out. If you take away every ounce of autonomy, freedom of choice, and control that someone has over their life, especially someone who is still developing intellectually and cognitively, you are going to make whatever problems are in existence worse. If you take away socializing from a human, you're going to make every problem they have worse. You don't need a medical degree to figure that very obvious shit out. So if you think the solution to a kid not knowing how to act is to put them in a child prison camp or a child labor camp, you're wrong. Something's wrong with you, and you're probably the one that needs to check yourself in somewhere. Facts ain't defamation. Love you, mean it. Okay, bye.